Welcome back to Kaulignation, your one-stop shop for all things Kaulig racing, DingerNation, SVGNation. We're here on a Sunday afternoon. You hear some background noise coming through my mic. It's because I'm actually driving. I don't recommend people doing live streams while driving, and if I was doing it alone, I probably wouldn't be doing it. I know I've done some in the past on other channels, but it can be a distraction. But I'm not alone because for the first time in a while, actually, I guess we haven't done a pre-produced video together in a while. Our last one was a live stream, but Ryan's back and got some celebrating to do and some things to discuss, man. What a night.
Wow, what a night indeed, man. It's been a while since I've had that feeling, and I was on the edge of my seat for the last 50, 60 laps, man, and I forgot what that feeling felt like, and it felt real good to cross that checkered flag and get the win. So, yeah, awesome. Really needed that, obviously. As clutch of a performance as you can ask for right there.
Yeah, I mean, not only to get a win, but get a win on an oval. To have a good, like a really, really good car. I don't think he was the car to beat, but some things worked out in his favor. And hey, what do we always say in NASCAR? We've talked about it on this channel a lot with some of the people that are new to NASCAR. Clean air can make a world of difference. Not that he wasn't great in traffic. He was really good in traffic. But man, once they got him to have a shot at restarting out front, he blew the doors off the 7 car multiple times on restarts while starting on the inside. And all of a sudden, AJ Allmendingers leading, basically the entirety of stage 3.
Yeah, listen. So I actually went back and rewatched the race. So as I was telling you off the air, I was actually out with some friends when the race started. I was listening to the race on MRN or PRN, whoever had the race last night. And obviously I could listen to it, but I couldn't see it. And I went back and watched it overnight. And even every restart, even starting with the first, drop of the green flag, AJ was able to just rocket ship past cars. You went from 9th to 5th or 6th on the first start. Obviously, on the subsequent restarts, he had huge launches, was able to get out to a pretty big lead. Even the broadcast kept saying this. It was kind of annoying me, actually, Sean. They're like, oh, you should take the outside. You can control the restart from the outside. The outside is the place to be. And yet every restart, he's took the inside line, and every restart, he pulled out to a 2 or 3 car length advantage every single time. He was a rocket ship. Honestly, he was a rocket ship all night long. Short run, mid run, long run. He had great speed, but the first third of each run, he was so far faster than anyone in the field. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, the first couple of times they questioned him on the restart, I was kind of like, okay, I'll let it go. But after he had 3 or 4 of them like that, where he's just dominating on the inside line, it's like, do you think maybe he knows what he's doing and you should lay off? Like, I get part of it is it's a Kaulig car and can it clear, and I think that sort of questioning is justified at this point with how the season has gone. By the way, if you're watching this after the fact, sorry for the lack of notice of doing this. I'm doing fall cleaning, was working for like 3.5, 4 hours this morning. Ryan was doing basically the same thing on his end, and we just sort of came together and said, hey, I'm going to be in the car for about an hour. Why don't we try to knock out a live stream? So if you're not live with us, no worries, not your fault. We did not give really any notice for this, but given how busy our schedules have been, I got another insane week ahead of me. And I'm sure if my week's insane, Ryan's is probably insane. That we wanted to get content out of some sort. So if you're not a part of the live chat, my apologies. But if you're watching after the fact, then thank you very much for the support. We really appreciate it. Yeah, man, just blown away. I think if you take the race as a whole, for me, there was 2 cars that were better than AJ at times during the race. There's no doubt Sieg was the best car on track at the end of the race, but inexperienced and not being great at restarts, and he crumbled a little bit under the pressure there while he got loose, even though AJ gave him a ton of space. And then Cole Custer was super quick early on. I had mentioned to you, restarted like 14th or 15th on fresh tires with 5 laps to go in stage one, and won by quite a bit, which is wild to think. Like, yeah, new tires matter, but he kind of faded away. So I don't know if they went the wrong way on adjustments or whatever, but just utterly thrilled. I definitely woke up my kids with a yell and a scream, a fist pump when AJ won. Just it reminded me a little bit of I can't remember if it was at Atlanta or Vegas that he won before in the pandemic, but reminded me a little bit of that, but obviously with the added restart at the end.
Yeah, there's one constant, consistent aspect of what I see from AJ when he wins on ovals. Specifically, I'm only talking ovals here. When he can bottom feed and wrap the low line and hit the paint on the white stripe center corner off, when his car is allowing him to really arch the corner and just dig and dig and dig, he is really, really fast. I mean, he does that better than anyone in the Xfinity series for sure. And he's probably in the top 5 or 10 of Cup drivers when he can really wrap the bottom. That's where his speed comes from. Like, he's good at riding the wall. He can find speed up there, and he's going to do that at Miami next week. But when he wins on the oval specifically, he's always wrapping the bottom. He's just gripping the bottom. Good sight to see when he can do that. So even going back to stage one where Cole Custer won the stage, which was very impressive. I did not think any of those guys were marching through the fields. And Allgaier was right with him, by the way. He finished second, and he started right behind Custer. So both of them went to the front. AJ only fell to fourth. Like, Brandon Jones went from the lead to ninth. And I don't know, a couple of the other cars kind of faded to seventh, eighth-ish, falling behind other cars that took tires, and AJ didn't. That to me was the sign right there that they had a car that was more than capable of competing. No. And they did that, and holding that position, then pitting right at the end of stage 2 or stage 1, and he did the same thing, like on slightly fresher tires. He started 14th or so, and just within a handful of laps was up to 4th. So, I mean, just incredible speed from AJ, especially on the oval. It was great to see it. And I mentioned this in our playoff prediction episode that I thought this particular, round was really good for AJ. I knew he had won at Las Vegas in the past. He's very good at Homestead, Miami. It's probably his current best oval, at least especially on the Cup side. And in Martinsville, he's always shown good speed. So I was very confident we were going to have good speed this round. But to come out and thoroughly dominate the race, he led over half the race. Not only was shocking, but was just great to see. We haven't shown that type of speed all year long. So to find it when we needed it, and now this helps us for Phoenix too, Sean, right? Like, now, of course, we want to go out and compete at Miami. Of course, we want to go out and run well at Martinsville. But we've got 2 weeks now to just figure out a setup for Phoenix, try to make that car capable of winning a championship. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come back to what happened last night more, because there's definitely a lot to discuss. But in terms of what it means moving forward, man, like I had said, and I posted on our social media about it, and I don't really know where you were with the wavelength for this, because we didn't get too much of a chance to discuss it, but I had mentioned that I thought AJ, realistically, if he, look, 3 ovals in a row, Kaulig hadn't won on an oval this year. Frankly, they hadn't been close to winning on an oval this year. I thought that their best way in was pointing their way in, because I didn't think they'd have the speed to win unless, you gambled on a late restart or something on old tires. And I thought he would have to get top 5s at Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. But not only get top 5s, likely finish in the top 5 of each stage as well. And I thought if he could do all that, not necessarily that he would get in, but he would be close to getting in. I think if you do all that, you have a shot. But to go out and win Vegas after not winning all year, and being shit on by quite a few people, by the way, and car passed Tech, by the way, so he's in. And to be the first car locked in to the round of 4, aka the championship race, at a track that Kaulig has never been any good at, and to go, you know what? Not that we're not going to try at Martinsville and Homestead, because I'm sure they will, but now all your resources, for the most part, can focus on Phoenix to at least give yourself the best shot you can at being competitive and having a shot at winning the championship.
Yeah, no doubt. And my side to that is not just AJ's team, right? All teams, and I'm talking the Cup side too. You put your best engineers on that car. You put your best crew chiefs, your greatest minds. You go to Chevy and say, "We're locked in. Give us that simulator time. I want to be in the simulator today, right now. I want him. He should be in the simulator right now for Phoenix, getting ready today. They need to go to their partners and be like, listen, let's pump the funding. Let's get everything we can, and just make sure when they show up at the track in 3 weeks' time that they have given themselves every opportunity to go out and win this race, because this is a rare opportunity where you can fully focus all of your attention, all of your resources, whether that's from the Chevy simulator side or even your partners at RCR. I know they have 2 drivers that are trying to fight their way in, and you got to be respectful of that. But you go even to your partners at RCR and be like, listen, let's review notes, let's look at setup sheets, let's try to get something figured out, because honestly, we have struggled, and so have some of the other Chevy programs. It's a track that Ford does really well at, and if Cole Custer advances to that round, he's going to be tough to beat. You got to pool the best resources you can. So I fully expect it to be an all hands on deck. And honestly, you kind of touched on it. Kaulig has been shit on a lot this year, and rightfully so. Their performance has lacked. But this really just kind of vindicates that year and why AJ came back to the Xfinity Series to do this. He's in the championship 4. He's given them a shot. And if you'd asked me 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, I don't know if we would have gotten here. But they've gotten better all year long, and it's culminating in this one race where, if it all goes right, we can win a championship, and that is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think we both predicted round of 8. I don't know if either of us thought they had the speed to win, but I thought, given the strength of the round of 8 tracks for AJ, that he had a shot to point himself in. But I said during some of his interviews last night, Phoenix is a weak spot for them. This is your time now, being the first Chevy locked in, to be able to lean on them and say, hey, more simulator time, more resources, help us out here. Let's get something done. We're not great here, but you want Chevy to win a championship. And there could be other Chevys in that final round. I would not be shocked if Justin Allgaier is in there, because he has such a big point lead. I think he would have to have a disaster to not make it at this point. But the other 2 are probably going to come from the guys that win those races. And that could be anybody. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But of all the races, at least in Xfinity this year, that you could win, talk the first race at Daytona, talk the first Martinsville race where they were very good and crap happened, talk COTA, where they were the second best car on track next to SVG, crap happened. The fact that they never won on a road course this year, which is probably devastating for AJ. The fact that they probably should have won at Daytona and didn't. You look at the schedule, you look at the analytics, and quite literally, there was no bigger or more important race that you could have won other than the last race, meaning Phoenix. No bigger race you could have won than last night. And they went out and did it and gave themselves now so much extra time and probably more resources to throw into that championship race.
Oh, 100%. And I looked up this stat last year because I was kind of intrigued. How many drivers that win this race, right? The first race of the round of 8, go on and win the championship. And obviously it's hard to be, in a sport, winning is very low, right? You don't win a lot. But the drivers that win this first race that go on to win the championship was something like 35-40% of the time, which in racing is an astronomical number. Like, that is a huge advantage to get that opportunity to do what they're about to do. And you're right, statistically, it is, from a championship standpoint, it is the second most critical race of the year, and they went out and did that. So that's a huge deal. And and listen, I made this comment on socials last night that AJ's been fast all year. Has he had winning speed? Only a couple occasions, but not really. But he's been fast. But they've had a lot of bad luck. Anything that could have gone wrong felt like it did go wrong this year. From tires going down at Darlington popped into my head. The penalty at Coda. There were just multiple occasions where they had good speed and didn't get the result that they probably deserved. And I was like, man, maybe this is just the year of bad luck, and it's that's the racing luck. Racing gods in my mind exist, and everybody goes through positives and negative periods of time. And I tell you what, that bank of good luck finally cashed in, and I won't even say good luck. They earned it. They were at the end, Ryan Sieg was the better car, but I think they were the best car, bar none, throughout the course of the night. And that gave them the position to win that race. So it all fell into place. They had great pit stops, all pit stops. They either held position or gained position, beating that 7 car off pit road fair and square to take the lead to start stage 3 was critical, because then they had control of the restart. All of everything that had to come together came together on the most important night of the year. So really big deal for, obviously, AJ, for Kaulig. Winning on Matt Kaulig's birthday is just a cherry on top, right? I mean, everything just was great. And I do want to give a shout out to David. He actually is with us on the live stream, and one of our friends from Australia. And I just really do feel bad for SVG. It sucked that he had, I don't even know what his issue was. Something under the hood was sour on that car. It sucked that he had a bad performance, but listen, he'll rebound. If his car was healthy, he probably would have had a top 10 last night. All Kaulig cars were fast. So it is a shame that SVG didn't get that chance, but listen, they're all going to work and he is going to be helping AJ in any capacity he can over the next couple races too, right? Not only as we were talked about Chevy and our partners and all those guys and our engineers, but also our drivers, all the other drivers, whether it's Daniel Dye or SVG, they're all hands on deck to help AJ win this championship now. So again, this race was the most important race to win. Now they can have a game plan from A to Z to get this thing going in the right direction. So that's beyond awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. We will touch on SVG more towards the end of this thing, because I want to talk about all the Kaulig drivers. I also want to talk a little bit about Christian Eckes and what we witnessed last week. But, just if you didn't catch it last night, SVG has the issues under the hood multiple times, might I add, because he did return to track, and is out of the race. Now, he has a race today that he's running. He very easily could have gone back to his trailer or hotel room, wherever he's staying in Vegas, and called it a night. And he didn't do that. He got up on AJ's pit box and stayed for the rest of the race and watched along. And SVG's on his way out of Kaulig racing. He doesn't need to do that. He really doesn't. And he did. And I thought that was just spectacular on his behalf. It showed unity with the team. And given, not winning at Coda and getting eliminated last week over a call that wasn't his. I'm not sure I would have made the same call if I was in his position. I'd probably be pissed off and want to go back. But he wasn't like that at all, man. He got up there with Alex Johnson and Chris Rice and company. And I admire that, because for me, NASCAR doesn't get the credit it deserves for being a team sport, and how many other people are involved in your success. And we'll touch on pit stops. I know you touched on it briefly. But kudos to SVG for doing that. kudos to Daniel Dye for going into victory lane, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but like apparently went up to AJ and said, I had to be here for this incredible win. He wanted to get his picture taken with AJ. Like that's phenomenal, man. It really made me feel a lot better about the team last night after what's been a very up and down roller coaster season.
Yeah, and one thing I saw this comment from Daniel's Twitter page, X page. He's like, I'm a fan. Like, I'm a fan of AJ. I'm a fan of racing, and I got to be a fan in that moment to take that picture with AJ and Victor. That meant something to him. Like that, we kind of take it for granted, right? The AJ's been our guy for however long, and he's an older guy. He's 42 now. Daniel Dye's 20 years old. He grew up watching AJ on the track, as a kid, and for him getting to experience that and be in victory lane with AJ truly meant something. And you're right, that just to the unity of the team. Josh Williams, went down the front stretch and kind of did, I don't know if he did a high five or a little burnout or whatever, just acknowledge AJ's win. SVG, as you touched on, being on the pit box. It goes to show to me, and I know SVG and AJ have kind of been the rivals on the road course, but the partnership that they've developed, we even saw it with the Roval last week. They were really working well together, trying to find the speed to race both of their cars into the next round. That AJ's the respected leader of the team, and when he's running well, all of the other drivers are following suit. They're all happy. They're all working together, and that really showed from all the drivers on the course last night, whether it was SVG, Daniel Dye, or Josh. And that to me just really cements what AJ is to Kaulig as a whole, right? Like he's their best overall driver. We all know that, but he's also the leader of the team, and his success means something to everyone in that organization. And that, as just somebody that didn't get to experience that a lot, as somebody that's been a huge racing fan my whole life, seeing these moments just really means so much more to me as well, and how I've connected with the team and the driver, and it's just awesome, man.
Yeah, I love when the team can unite like that. Like I said, SVG easily could have taken off and gone about his business for the night. Was there to support. I didn't see the Josh Williams thing after the race, but to touch on Josh Williams very briefly here, he was on TV multiple times last night. That 11 car had some pace to it too. Was very, very good on the entry into the turns. Or I thought AJ's strong point was the exit of 3 and 4. I thought he was better than a lot of the cars, which served well in the end. Daniel Dye started off rough, but got better as the night went on. Also, AJ played a huge part, apparently, in Daniel Dye getting that ride. Like, Chris Rice had talked about it multiple times in interviews. One of them was with friend of the channel, Owen Johnson from Cup Scene. He mentioned that AJ never really heard of Daniel Dye before this year. And so he did his homework on him, studied him, started watching him, got to know him, and was like very pro Daniel Dye. And then, to have a big part in, I mean, let's not forget Daniel Dye's got some sponsor support, so that certainly helps him lock down one of those rides next year. But to also have a big part in Christian Eckes coming in next year, to not forget that Chris Rice, AJ, and Matt Kaulig went to see Eckes run earlier this year at a track where it was AJ's off weekend, didn't have to be there, but he ended up going anyway. And Eckes last weekend being there, like glued to AJ and SVG, learning. Like, AJ's win last night aside, man, there's some big team building stuff that I've seen the last couple of weeks that really makes me feel a lot better about the team and the organization and where we currently are, which is a good thing because Chris Rice all but said in a radio interview a couple of weeks ago that, hey, look, change is coming. Personnel change is going to be happening all summer. And while we get excited about that, a lot of people are going to lose jobs there.
Yeah, and listen, that's the beauty and the beast of this sport, right? Like, it's a very performance-based industry, and it's you either are performing or you're not, and if you're not, you're out on looking for new work, and I hate that for anyone, any industry. But especially this industry, which I care a lot about, I never want to see anybody lose their jobs, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to make tough decisions for the betterment of your organization. And honestly, I think we kind of saw that. I don't know the dynamics behind the Travis Mack. I know he's moving on to Legacy, but I kind of have a feeling, this is just a feeling, no insider information, that's they were going to go in a different direction. And they probably said, listen, Travis, you should probably start looking for other opportunities. And I just feel like that's one of those stepping stones that's the organization is going to take from, the top to the bottom, whether you're the crew chief or the guy that's doing, tire pressures and checking fuel levels in the tank. Every role matters, but you have to do it at a level that's going to be competitive. And I know Ty Norris has only been with the team a couple of weeks, and how involved he's been, we don't know, or if he's actually even made any internal changes. But it's that process that he's on board, and we found some speed, we got some wins, right? Like I do think there's correlation there, and that's part of the industry. So I'm looking forward to what next year brings. I do think we'll have some support funding wise, whether that's from new partners or existing partners stepping up. And on that note, I'm wearing the Action Industries hat today instead of my Allmendinger hat, but I wanted to do that because Action Industries was the sponsor last night, even though it said roofing something else. It's it was new to the side of the car, but it was Action Industries. So giving them the shout out for continuing to support AJ, and all the other sponsors, Campers Inn, RV, Celsius, all these guys, right, that make the team go. It's just really one of those things where when all the nucleus comes together, they've got the funding, they've got the personnel. I do have high hopes going in the next year that, both programs, Cup and Xfinity, will take a positive jump in the right direction. And with Christian Eckes coming into the 16 car next year, I really do expect them to be competitive and have opportunities to win races and make a deep playoff run, just like AJ. And then on the Cup side, I think AJ has a chance to work his, win a race, or, have a chance to point his way into 16th. I am confident. I'm so much more confident today than I was 2 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago, that the direction of the team's going in the right way.
Yeah. So Action Industries was on the car last night, but there was a new sponsor that is a part of the not the call it companies, but like the garage door sponsors, etc., which is what Action Industries does as well. So like it doesn't hurt when you get a new partner on there and you win with them. And I thought it was a sharp looking car. So
I think we may have lost Sean there. That's the downside to live streaming while in the car. Hopefully he pops back on here in a moment. But yeah, listen, it's pointing. It was a different paint scheme on the side of the car, but AJ was wearing his Action Industries fire suit. So I personally think there's either a subsidiary of Action Industries or not. But nonetheless, it was a pretty car. I am looking forward to ordering the diecast. I know not everybody is able to order diecasts or get their hands on the diecasts, but as you can see directly behind me now that I'm full screen here, I do love collecting diecast cars, and I will be 100% ordering this new diecast as soon as it's available to do so. Again, it just really touches base on the every relationship you build. And I know colleague companies in general has supported a lot of drivers, not just AJ, but AJ in particular over the last couple of years. Whether we've seen, we've seen a few different sponsors on the side of his car, but Action Industries being the prominent one, the Nutrigreen AG, even Celsius to an extent. They all are colleague companies, and these are organizations that, while they are associated with Matt Colleague, they still are spending their budgets, their marketing budgets, to step on the side of these race cars. So again, I was very happy to see a new sponsor. It seems like AJ runs really well with new sponsors. We saw Ramco a couple years ago get a win in their first race. It's one of those things where I really want to see our big sponsors, Celsius, Campers Inn RV, even Strive, right? Even though they've been on the car one race, I feel really strongly that they're going to be an active part of our organization going forward. I would really love to get those guys in victory lane. They've really put a lot of money into our team, and it's great that they are supporting our team. And I would love to see them get in victory lane this year, but nonetheless, it's great to see that Action Industries car and Colleague company get to victory lane. So again, all of our partners work together. And hey, Sean, you're back. So I think you were afraid of that,
I'm in
right?
a bad service area. I'm in a bad service area right now, ladies and gentlemen. So might be Ryan heavy here for 5 or 10 minutes, but I'll do my best to stay connected.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I was just touching back on the, all of our sponsors, right? Whether it's been Celsius or Campers Inn or Strive or any of our guys that have stepped up to the plate this year, on top of our colleague sponsors that, have made all of the teams go, not just AJ, but all of the teams in one race or two races a year. So, again, it's just, at the end of the day, this is positive vibes, happy for everyone. These are the moments that, really help kickstart and, obviously a chance to win a championship, but, going into next year as well. So, I'm hoping we'll see some announcements soon on the full partner package for all of our drivers. I think we're still waiting on Christian Eckes to see who's going to be sponsoring him. Obviously, AJ still got some partner announcements to make. So, wins like this, going out, winning races, getting the exposure, right? All of those things are just increasing the value of your driver, your organization, and I'm really hoping next year we will see some big organizations step up to the plate and help support Colleague in general, AJ in general, and really have a chance to compete at the highest levels with the Joe Gibbs Racings, with the Hendrick Motorsports, because it's tough and you need good partners to do it. Interesting. Oh yeah. So just reading in our chat that what type of car would we bring to Phoenix, right? And that's a good question. This is this car just won the race, right? Obviously, it's a good car. Do you repurpose this one and try to get it set up to run Phoenix, or do you have a specially prepped car that you've been working on, a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, hoping you get a chance to win a championship? Do they have a specially prepped car to handle that? I don't know. It's a very good question. But I definitely know the tracks are different, right? Las Vegas is very different than Phoenix, and even size-wise, Phoenix is less than a mile, just under a mile, shaped very differently, very flat, whereas Las Vegas is pretty high banked mile and a half, pretty high speed mile and a half, all things being considered. I think you can bring the same car and turn it around. I mean, obviously the setups aren't, you don't have specialized race cars anymore. Back in the day, you would have a super speedway car, a mile and a half car, a short track car. I don't think they do that anymore. I think you can pretty much run any chassis. You just have to put the right setup in it. So knowing that this car just won the race, I wouldn't be surprised if they turned it around and brought it back to Phoenix in a few weeks.
Sorry, bear with me here, Ryan. So funny you mentioned that because Chris Rice was talking about having different car types, and I don't know which series he's referring to, but they definitely do. And he mentioned, um, it's got to be the Cup car, to be honest, where it's not the same type of car that goes to every track. Because on one of the Sirius satellite hits the last couple of weeks, don't know if it was the most recent one or the one before that, he mentioned that they don't actually bring a super speedway car to Atlanta. As much as people look at it as a super speedway race, that's not the style of car they run there.
Huh. That's very interesting. Yeah, it's.
I'd love to know more. Like, that'd be great to get one of those guys on and discuss that stuff.
Well, and I guess my lean would be towards the Xfinity car then, right? Because honestly, these Cup cars are spec cars. They're, the parts are all the same. It's very. I mean, maybe they do have special characteristics that they try to build into a speedway car versus a mile-and-a-half truck car. But I think you have more malleability, I guess, with the Xfinity car, where maybe you do have different front end geometry setups, the how the mounts are mounted and certain angles of attack you want to put into your race car to do various things. Perhaps those are different or options. And I lean towards the Xfinity car. I really don't think you have much leeway at the Cup car, but even the Xfinity cars are very tight with the rules, right? Like ride heights and certain camber placements and things like that. That you kind of get into the weeds of the car, but they have very strict rules where certain things have to be mounted, how much allowance you have in a 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees variance in your setup. So I actually am surprised to hear that they have just different cars based off of the track they go to. And honestly, I'm surprised they don't bring a super speedway car to Atlanta, because their super speedway package, especially at Daytona and Talladega, is really strong. They're good at Atlanta, but definitely not as good as they are at Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah, I think Chris Rice was talking about it on, I think it was this past week he was talking about it, because they were talking about budgets and how he arranges stuff to do the year. And he brought up the fact that it's not a super speedway car at Atlanta. And he assumes that in terms of the super speedway cars at Daytona and Talladega, it's 4 times a year. He has it budgeted that they're basically going to wreck half the cars they bring.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think that's the part of racing, right, we don't see, and how they, basically when they pack up their cars to go to a super speedway, they know they're likely not coming back in one piece. That's such an interesting perspective to think about, but you have to. You cannot expect to bring those cars back. But nonetheless,
By the way, if you see stuff in the chat, let me know. My chat froze a while ago.
Yeah, I don't actually. I have the last comment about the car came from the DingerNation chat that we have. There's a little chat group there, so brought up there, which is super interesting. Again, I'm glad that question was posed. It's not something I thought about, but now with 3 races left, though, I mean, I don't know what's left in the tank budget wise or how much money they've got left to spend, but I hope they empty the barrel. Nothing left. Bring everything you've got to this.
You have to. Matt Kaulig wants to win a championship. I would argue that, not to say that Christian Eckes can't be in this position next year, because he could, but this is your best shot at it right here. Like, you have 3 weeks to prepare, essentially, for that race. You put everything into that 16 Phoenix performance. Like you were mentioning earlier, you turn over every stone, call in every favor, you do whatever you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. You and again, and we don't want to hinder the performance of our other cars either, but I do think the other cars now know, where they are in the pecking order. That's the resources, they might need to divert some resources from the 10 car or even the 97 car. And, and I think those teams and drivers would understand that would be necessary in some instances, but also you don't want to change too much, right? Like what got you here is what got you here, and you don't want to change your process that much, but you definitely want to make sure, as you said, make sure every part's good. There's, mitigate the risk as much as you can, and hope for the best. But I guess at the end of the day, man, this is as good of a situation as we could ask for, and I still don't feel overly confident that we are going to perform up to the standards of a Cole Custer or even a Justin Allgaier, but we got a chance, and that's all you can ask for. And if the racing gods are in your favor and things work out the way we want them to, we'll be a champion, and that would be a huge deal for this organization. Being able to put a championship banner up just solidifies the organization as something that can run at the highest levels.
Absolutely. And like a win yesterday, I don't think people understand how far that goes in terms of bringing on new partners. Now, I'm not talking like, you're probably not scoring a new 6 or 8 race deal out of yesterday's win. But if you have 6 or 8 races left on even AJ's Cup side next year, you might be raising some eyebrows and having a sponsor go, yeah, we're going to take on one of those races. What, your Vegas race in the fall next year isn't covered? Yeah, we'll do it. And just the organization as a whole, it also helps sponsor-wise. I was going to make the same comment about Christian Eckes. Like, Christian Eckes, more than likely going to be in the Final Four for the trucks. And, like, it's huge, right? Like, you have him and AJ both, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here because Eckes hasn't qualified for the Final Four as of yet, but like it's a huge opportunity for him and the team, even though that's not Kaulig over there, but you're still putting your name out there more. Like Ty Norris, this is what I was saying before I got cut off earlier, has come in, and you had, obviously they didn't win at COTA, but had great performances at COTA, and then AJ wins at Vegas. Like, I don't want to say you're making Ty Norris's job easy, but you're certainly helping.
Yeah, they picked a good time to get hot, right? And I know you just said COTA and meant the Roval there, but you're picking a really good time to get hot for sure. And I fully expect Homestead to be another good track. Like, this is one of AJ's very best tracks, and I would not be surprised if we put it in the top 5 again. And you string together some really good runs, and it's a huge confidence boost, right? Like, really, the whole sport revolves around confidence as much as it does car performance. And if you got a little swagger to you kind of naturally find more speed, and we see this every year, by the way, come playoff time, that going all the way back, I'm going way back. Some drivers, or some of our fans might not remember this, but the year Tony Stewart won his 3rd championship, he didn't win a single race before the chase, and then won 5 of the last 10 races. That team got hot. They got some confidence. They got that swagger, and it just built on itself to the point where they went out and basically stole the championship from Carl Edwards. And I kind of see the same momentum building with AJ and the 16 bunch, and honestly the whole Kaulig organization, because I do expect SVG to run well these last couple of races. But this is just that momentum stacking that we saw, that after that first race, right, where we just sucked at Kansas. I do not know what happened that caused the team to field such poor cars there. They found something.
They brought a Darlington setup to Kansas, and why you would do that is beyond me, because they're not the same track. They're not really even close to the same track.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was not smart. But after getting tossed, I mean, and we were 18 points below the cut line or something like that after that Kansas race, we were down, right? I really did not think we were going to be able to claw our way out of that hole. And then we go to where did we go after Kansas? Was it Talladega? Yeah, Talladega. We got caught up in a wreck that sucked, but we were fast right up front, got stage points. I think we even won a stage. Gained on the cut line. And it just builds. Then we obviously went to the Roval and didn't win, but ran up front all day, did the right things, did what we had to do to advance, come out and win Las Vegas. And now, holy shit, right? The train is full steam forward now. And that a little bit of adversity at the start might have been the catalyst that's going to push us all the way to a championship. And it's small details, but that could be all it takes. They are hotter than a firecracker right now.
Yeah, I saw some people bitching about, how they thought AJ was getting more from Kaulig than SVG going into last night's race. And I didn't reply to it, but just to catch people up on how it works, and you kind of hinted at it earlier, man, is look, when your team has, say, two cars in the playoffs, like Kaulig did for those first three races, most of the resources are going to AJ and SVG's cars in those races. They're the playoff drivers. They're not going to Josh Williams' car. Not that he's, driving complete junk, but he's not getting extra resources for those races. And he might be losing a little bit of his. And even Daniel Dye ran one of those races too. Like, they're not, souping up that car. And with SVG being eliminated last week, I hate to tell people this, that's just how it works. Even if the roles had been flipped and SVG was the one in the playoffs going into Vegas last night and AJ had been eliminated, you put any extra resource you can into the playoff car remaining. That's just how it works in trucks, in Xfinity, and in Cup.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly right. If the roles were reversed and SVG was in and AJ was out, SVG would have gotten. And listen, it's not like we're sitting here and saying AJ got 300% of the good stuff and everybody else got the scraps. No, but you do get a little bit more time. As I said, simulator time, I think, is the big example of what being in the playoffs does for you, or being the lone driver in the playoffs. Is that it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that if AJ got to pool some simulator time, that maybe would have gone to a Josh Williams or an SVG, and Chevy may have bumped him up from, let's say, 5 hours in the sim to 10 hours in the sim, just because he's still in the playoffs. Those are the benefits of being a playoff driver versus not. It's, the cars are the cars, the equipment's the equipment. There's not a huge difference, at the end of the day. But the support from your engineering staff, the fine tuning of the chassis, making sure that it's just that millimeter better, those small details is where you get that extra help. And yeah, SVG's not going to get as much as AJ here the rest of the season, but that's okay. And maybe there's an advantage to that, Sean, honestly. For teams like Junior Motorsports that has 3 drivers in the round of 8, and Joe Gibbs has two teams, Chandler Smith and the Eric Almirola car. They're in an owner's battle. Same thing with RCR. They got Jesse Love and Austin Hill, and they're kind of having to figure out how to best allocate the resources that they've got. Whereas in our case, we are a 3 to 4 car operation and 1 driver fighting for a championship. That kind of gives us almost to an extent a little bit of an advantage in being able to boost AJ as much as we can. And it does kind of suck. I'd be maybe a little annoyed too, if our performance dipped and another driver's increased because of the situation. But at the end of the day, it is a team sport, and all of our teams are now helping the 16 car try to win a championship.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, we didn't hear anything on the broadcast last night, but another area where teams will make changes is the pit crew. And I mentioned earlier, considering how much we've shit on them this year, I think it's good to give them their cookies here when earned. And I would not be shocked if some of AJ's pit crew last night was some of the SVG pit crew. Not all, but teams will absolutely go and look at their detailed analytics and go, oh, so the left rear tire changer is much quicker on, I'm using examples, the 11 than the 16 and 97. He's going to go up for the remainder of this year with the playoff car. I can almost guarantee you someone was switched somewhere. It rarely doesn't happen in NASCAR. Um, but for the guys that were servicing that 16 last night, man, uh, far and away the best race of the year for them at the biggest time.
Absolutely. Home run. All night long, home run. Again, and going back to the end of stage 2, right? When Allgaier won the stage and we were right there, right behind him in second. We go down pit road in second place. We come off pit road in first place. I don't remember seeing that in this year, last year, years past, where, obviously we've gained spots on pit roads. That does happen. But at the very top, going up against the very best and Justin Allgaier, we were better and we gained that track position. We got, again, I can't, how important that is, because we got to control that restart, got out front and drove away. And being the first off pit road was a huge part of why we got to do that. And we did. We went 14.4 and 14.6 on the final 2 stops. Those were half a second and a second faster than Allgaier. And that just amazing work by the team. Just, it was flawless from the pit crew side, from the top of the box, adjusted the car correctly throughout the course of the race, where they were a little loose at the start, lacking little lateral grip, to the next stop where they were able to get a little bit more, to the final stop where they adjusted from the sun to the darkness. And it all worked so flawlessly. And yes, Ryan Sieg was better than AJ at the very end of this race, but the performance of the team from the start to the finish, which allowed AJ to get the track position to build that lead, it all was crucial in us winning that race. So huge flowers to the team all the way across the board, and the pit crew, who was phenomenal and flawless and did their jobs to the best of their ability. And they deserve a huge part. Yeah, as you said, they deserve a huge set of flowers, because we don't win this race if they don't perform. So everything worked as good as we could have asked for last night. And that's, it's a beautiful sight when it all comes together.
Yeah, so like we're watching that green flag run, right? And I'm sitting here going, at the time we're about to do green flag pit stops, I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't know if it's better if a caution comes out so we don't have to do a green flag pit stop, or, hope for the best. And I was a little surprised they kept him out as long as they did, because a couple of guys came in like 3 laps earlier and then 2 laps earlier. Justin Allgaier came in 1 lap earlier than AJ. And he does that because if you come to pit road earlier, the chances are you're going to make up a tiny bit of time on the guys that are coming up later, but maybe give up a little bit of tire. Now, 1 lap doesn't make a ton of difference, but you'd mentioned AJ gapped him by half a second on that green flag pit stop in terms of just the pit stops. But in overall time between getting in and getting out and back on the track, 1.2 seconds. That was the difference in gap. So AJ got onto pit road cleaner. AJ got off of pit road cleaner and was able to navigate things better than Justin Allgaier, and gained a total of 1.2 seconds in that time. And that, to me, that's just utterly astounding. And then you mentioned the pit stop at the end there under the yellow, where he definitely needed to come out and have a good pit stop. They weren't the best during that. I think they got beat by a couple of guys on time, but it wasn't by much. AJ was able to take advantage of having it was like a 5 or 6 car length gap on Sieg, and Sieg was able to cut it down to 2. But he never gave up that advantage, got off pit road relatively easily, still in the lead. And like, that's huge. They talk about restarting high for the control line. AJ didn't want to lose the low line. And I think you would have had guys possibly picking that low line just to take it away from him had he not come out. So, like, as much as we've shit on the pit crew this year, and I wish I could give them their flowers properly, so if we knew who was a part of it and if anybody had been changed out for last night or not, which I suspect maybe a couple of people were, either way, like, you talk about clutch, you talk about big game performances, a team that steps up in the playoffs. I know this is sounding more like we're talking about an NHL or an NFL or an MLB team or whatever, But this is NASCAR. Come postseason, everybody's got to step up. And last night, everybody did. And another guy we haven't been overly positive on this year that deserves his flowers too, man. We mentioned the extra stimulator time, and I'd love for you to touch on the pit crew first, and then this guy. But like Alex Yance, AJ made it clear after the race they made a clear attempt at setting the car up for nighttime rather than daytime. And as the race went on, the car only got better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been pretty critical of Mr. Yance, almost my namesake, very close to my name, throughout the course of the year. And in fact, I'll sit here and be the first to admit that, I called for him to be removed from the top of the pit box mid-year this year when we were struggling. And you know what? I give the team all the credit in the world for not breaking it up and saying, listen, this is what's going to work, and we just got to continue to build that chemistry. And I think it was the broadcast that said this, that they did struggle in Kansas, and obviously that setup did not work. And what they ended up doing was I'm assuming all the teams did this. They would be stupid not to, but they really gave the props to Kaulig and Allmendinger's team specifically for this. Was they saw the weather, they looked out and said, oh man, this is going to be a cooler than average race. That it's Las Vegas, and this time of year it's pretty hot, and this last night it was in the 70s, and they went to bat, like they went to work prepping their car to handle cooler temperatures. And there was also a big change from last year to this year, where this race did end under the lights. Last year ended mid-afternoon, where it was very hot and slick still, and they went back to their drawing board. They went back to their notes from, I don't remember if they said they went back to their spring notes from earlier this year, where it was a little cooler, or even a couple of years ago when they won this race in 2001. But they took that base setup and then they tweaked it, knowing what the weather was going to look like. And they clearly had their plan in place for the weather conditions and put together a setup that was really good. And we've seen this for years, Sean, where, AJ can be really strong for the first part of a run and then just fall off a cliff at the end of the run. And last night, they were really, really good at the first half of the run, but they maintained and even built better as the race went on, to a point where, by the time the caution did come out with 30 to go, he had built a 3.5 second cushion over Allgaier and Smith and Sieg. And when obviously at the start of the stage 2, Allgaier was all over him. So even as the tires got worn down and they were on older tires, AJ's car not only continued to, it just sustained throughout the course of the run. And for that to me is the biggest sign of a setup that really, really works. And Alex Yance 100%, and the whole group, they nailed it, hit it out of the park. And yeah, man, maybe we can look up and see if they have a list of the crew who serviced the car, because I would definitely like to give them a shout out, maybe, on our next video, because they certainly earned it. So again, top of the box, all the way down to the guy that's checking tire wear, did their jobs. And now it was as flawless of a performance as I've seen from our team since AJ's been part of it. And that is saying something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be able to try to figure out if they changed anyone or not. They don't usually focus too much on that in the Xfinity series, but like it happens a ton in NASCAR as teams have multi-car teams and some of them go down. Then the remaining playoff driver again gets resource as well. Your pit crew is a resource, right? So wouldn't be shocked if there was a change or two involved there. A lot of people involved, for sure. I can't not ask you about this as we get ready to come to an end here of our live stream. We'll go for maybe 5 or 10 more and call it. But I'm assuming you didn't catch it live, because you wouldn't have been home, I don't think. But Sorry. Got a message from the wife saying she's been stung by a bee. Not great. It's a super warm day up here in Canada. The weather changed massively. So they're definitely out in full force. Anyways, so I'm assuming if you didn't see it last night, you probably came across it on your rewatch or on social media. The 7 car was desperate to get a piece of debris off of his grill. He had tried with a lap down car before, and then there was a big stretch without them. And he actually got it stuck to his grill even more. And the car was overheating and was having electrical issues to the point where the crew chief of the 7 car ran down to the 16 pit. Okay, these guys are 1 and 2 in the race right now on a long green flag run. And they're pleading with AJ, who at that point is 2 seconds ahead of him, to slow down so Justin Allgaier can get the debris off the car, and in return, they won't pass him. And the broadcast was having a field day with this because it's not like a 4th versus 5th or, 17th versus 16th. This is 1st versus 2nd, both playoff cars. And I forget the fella's name, Junior's old crew chief.
Letarte was having it.
It's just like, you know how many times I've been lied to in this sport? He's like, absolutely not. And like when I heard it, I'm just like, oh my God, colleague, for the love of God, don't. It's not RCR coming to you, and I would have said no to them too. It's Junior Motorsports, who are clearly better than you. And maybe Allgaier would have backed off for a bit and let AJ get his lead back up a little bit. Who knows? But like the fact that they even considered it, and then you had Coleman Presley, who's Logano's Cup Series crew chief, AJ's Xfinity Series crew, spotter, not crew chief, relay the message to AJ, and AJ had the same sentiment with Letarte. He literally laughed on the radio and said, "Well, then tell him to come catch me then." As in, he's not going back. And kudos for AJ for putting his foot down, because fuck that nonsense.
Yeah, so I did miss that live, but I just caught it on the rewatch, and you're right. Letarte was having a field day, and listen, I love Letarte. He is as blunt as they come. He tells it like it is. He's very knowledgeable. I want to give him a call because I really enjoy listening to him call these races. And you're right. He's like, maybe if this was not the playoffs, it was the regular season, maybe I would say, but there is no chance in hell. Obviously, he doesn't swear. You can't swear on a broadcast, but he's like, absolutely not. Yeah, you do not give them that track position, and he even made a good valid point. He's like, even if Allgaier, gives him the spot, right, lets him build his lead back, you're letting the guy in 3rd catch you, and you don't want that either because the guy in 3rd is capable of winning this race too. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point, because I was like, I'm a nice guy. I'm always like, sure, we can help each other out. Scratch your back now, we scratch our back a little bit later, right? You always want to build those favors. And hearing AJ say no was just the mindset again, going back to I just that confidence, that this aura that I think that this 16 car has right now. He's like, come get me. I will happily help you out if you can get to my bumper, but I'm not backing up to you. And I actually do think he did try to back up to him, Sean, at the end, because there, a lap or two later, the 7 car did get pretty close. I do think AJ is tempted to help him in some capacity, but he still was just so good, even trying to help. His car was so much better than Allgaier's center off that the 7 never got close enough to clear the debris. So that whole sequence was really telling of, we're racing for a championship. You're my closest competitor. No, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, I don't think he tried to help him, because they were talking on the radio how Allgaier wasn't absolutely giving it his all because he didn't think he could. He thought they were having a all throughout the race, specifically in stage 1 and early in stage 2, Allgaier was pushing the car too hard, and like they were damn near shredding their tires. Like the blisters were horribly bad, would be undrivable. And Allgaier made the comment on the radio that he doesn't think he can keep pace with AJ, and he didn't think AJ could keep that pace either. Well, without like doing to the tires what Allgaier did earlier in the race, and it turned out AJ could. Like he was, whatever the setup differences were between the 16 and 7, AJ could push harder and for longer. I think Allgaier just tried to give it his all for a couple laps on entry and closed it a little bit, and eventually said, I can't catch him. I can't get any closer. So like that would have pissed me off if they had done that, because that's not a time to do that. You're leading on an oval on a year where you've struggled. I'm a little pissed off they even brought it up to AJ, to be honest. To me, it's a no-brainer. You don't even bring it up to your driver. That being said, I do want to give Allgaier some credit here, because if you watch that last restart, he gave AJ a very clean, not dirty, a very clean big bump that propelled AJ well in front of the 28 car there at the end. And Allgaier didn't have to do that and could have played it a little differently. And it really worked out despite AJ not helping him out earlier.
Yeah, I almost got the feeling that the playoff drivers did not want Sieg there. Is kind of the feeling I got, because on that same restart, Chandler Smith did not give Sieg much of a push at all. And that was the difference to me, that AJ was able to clear Sieg quickly going into turn 1 and built up the gap, a couple 5-6 car lengths there on the penultimate lap that gave him the cushion he needed to run to the checkered. And again, kudos to Sieg. His car was so strong at the end, because every time I felt like AJ built the cushion to comfortable enough to get it to the end, Ryan Sieg within a lap was right on his bumper again. So he needed every bit of the help he got from Allgaier, the lack of help that Sieg got from Chandler, and even on the previous restart where Chandler really gave AJ a good shove, that those playoff cars seemed to be kind of working together a little bit to keep the sandbox within their own, keep the toys in their own sandbox, and they didn't want Sieg to be kind of stealing the limelight there, which, if I'm Chandler Smith, by the way, who is still 8 points to the good going into next week, I would have wanted Ryan Sieg to win that race, because AJ's would have been right there with him in the points, and now he's locked in. That's makes his job a little bit harder. So strategically, very interesting decisions there.
I don't have too much time to dive into this because I got to get out of here in like 2 minutes. But they mentioned Chandler Smith still doesn't have a ride next year. It doesn't even that. I think it was Letarte was talking to him the morning of the race, and Chandler Smith even said, "I don't know what I'm doing next year." I'm not going to rule out the possibility that Chandler Smith might be in a fourth Kaulig Xfinity entry next year if they can put the funding together for it. Not because of anything last night, but him and AJ have worked together pretty decently in a couple of races here recently. But I wouldn't rule out that possibility right now. He's still a young dude. That being said, I just wanted to get your take on this, and then I'm out of here. If you're AJ right now in Kaulig, to me, you're almost hoping, I know Cole Custer's great at Phoenix, but you're almost hoping that Chandler Smith and Cole Custer get 2 of those spots. I think it's going to be damn near impossible for Allgaier to not make it. I think they can run mediocre, safe races the next 2 races and be in. I think Reddy's like 53 points up on the cut line or some shit, which is just wild. I think you almost want other manufacturers to get in there. If they could, I'd almost rather it be 2 Toyotas and a Ford in there, so all the Chevy resources were going to AJ. But even if there can be only one other Chevy, I'd hope for that, because it means those 2 Chevys are going to get everything that manufacturer has for that last race.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the same thought earlier, actually, as we were talking, that I was in my head doing the math on who had the best chance to get to Phoenix, right? And I do believe that Cole Custer, Justin Allgaier, and Chandler Smith are the 3 cars that I believe are the cream of the crop of what's left. Doesn't mean that a Sam Mayer or Jesse Love or more likely Austin Hill could come in and swoop in a win and steal a spot. But I just think from raw performance and raw speed, those three other drivers are the three that I expect to be in Phoenix with AJ. And you're right. Yeah. Obviously having a second Chevy, a junior motorsports car, will mean we have to split the pie a little bit. But right now is the only locked in Chevy. I'm hoping we are on Chevy's door right now. As I said, give us that sim time. Give us the setup sheets that you got. Let's do what we can. And yes, having a Chevy and a Ford to kind of mitigate the risk and reduce the amount of, cross traffic would be the best case scenario. I do not like the idea of having to go against Cole Custer because Fords in general just are badasses at Phoenix, but that's the risk you take, and they're all good, right? It doesn't matter who makes the Final Four. If you make the Final Four, you're going to be fast and you're going to have a chance. So you just kind of pick your poison and go with it. But I think that would be the best case scenario for us to be two Chevys, a Ford, and a Toyota racing for the championship.
Absolutely, man. If you haven't yet liked this week for each and every one of you, congratulations to Colleague. Good luck to SVG and Daniel Hemrick today in the Cup race. I know they weren't practicing great, but you can still hope for the best. And just best of luck to them all. And Ryan, thanks for doing this, man. To everybody else, we'll see you next time right here on Kaulignation.